right. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. If you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Sherry Butler.
Here.
Kyler Cox.
Here.
Shannon Murray.
Here.
Ashley Pasquale.
Here.
Alex Ross.
Here.
Philip Shannon.
Here.
Todd Taylor.
Here.
Alexis Wolf.
Here.
Natalie Strader.
Here.
And Michelle Lynn.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, we have everyone. So now is the time for the call to the public, and I'll read this if we have. All right, so you can address the board on any issues. Your comments must be limited to 3 minutes or less. If you wish to address an item already on today's agenda, you should wait until that item is announced. At the conclusion of the open call to the public, individual members of the board may respond to criticism made by those who address the board. They may ask staff to review a matter or ask that a matter be placed on a future agenda. However, board members cannot discuss or take action on matters not already on the agenda. Okay.
Thanks, Ashley. Doug Carr, I was just wanting to know what the parks is going to ask for the CIP budget for the next fiscal. What kind of projects that CIP budget's going to be put in from the Parks and Rec department down the road. I see it's not coming, it's here, but CIP budget's going to be coming up in the next month or so. So it was just a question out there before that I can speak on something else so just wondering what's going on with the CIP budget for the next fiscal year. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Keene, is that something that you were planning on including in your report today?
It is not, no.
Okay.
Really, next fiscal year's CIP will be a continuation of what has been in the CIP as we plan that 5 years out and it moves along. The only addition would be we were awarded a SLIF grant to replace the launch ramp at Site 6. And so that project will move forward on there.
Okay, thank you. Well, then we will move on to approval of the December 5th, I think that should say 2022 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion or corrections? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So now we'll move into the staff report, and I assume that if anyone had any questions about what Mr. Keene discussed about what was presented in the CIP budget, you could ask that now, but I'll turn it over to you.
So 3rd through 6th grade co-ed youth basketball practices will begin on Monday, January 30th. Staff is working on teen break donations and schedule of events. If anyone out in the public is interested in volunteering, please contact our Parks and Recreation Department. Teen break will be held on March 21st through the 23rd this year. A new class that we're offering is a painting class for youth that will begin January 24th and run through February 28th. There are 6 classes in each age group. There's 4 to 6-year-olds and 7 to 9-year-olds. Those 6 classes are $45 for the series. Stand-up paddleboarding and kayaking classes are full for the month of February. Snorkeling classes have a small limited availability for February. And swim lessons, the next session will begin on February 6th. Some events going on in the community center. Credence Clearwater Revival Tribute Concert will be held January 26th. Arizona Highwaymen Tribute Concert will be held on January 29th. A Journey Tribute Concert will be held February 2nd. Shania Twain Tribute Concert February 5th. The Daughters of the American Revolution Bunko Fundraiser will be held on February 6th. Desperados Concert for Cancer Association of Havasu will be held February 11th. Garth Brooks Tribute Concert will be held February 13th. The Elton John Tribute Concert will be held February 16th. Frankie Valli's Tribute Concert will be held February 21st. The Rolling Stones Tribute Concert, which is a fundraiser for the Havasu Community Health Foundation, will be held February 22nd. The Mark Hahn Jet Ski Dinner and Banquet Awards will be held February 25th. AC/DC's Tribute Concert will be held February 28th. A few events going on out in the parks in the community. Little Delbert Days will be held at the rodeo grounds January 28th and 29th. The annual disc golf The annual disc golf tournament will be held at Sarah Park on February 4th through the 6th. Havasu Skates will have a skate night out at Sarah Park Rotary Rink on February 11th. The 34th annual Winter Blast Pyrotechnics Show will be held at Sarah Park Speedway on February 16th through the 19th. And the Pickle Fest Pickleball Tournament at Dick Sant Park will be held February 24th through the 26th. With that, I'll take any questions.
All right, questions for Mr. King? All right.
Big agenda for next month.
Was there anything else that you wanted to say about the next steps in the process for the budget?
We're just now working on the budget. We did have one submittal meeting for CIPs that those will be evaluated and then ranked against each other throughout the entire city. But we're just starting to work on that, on the budget process. And that information will be due the beginning of next month.
Okay, thank you. Well, then I guess we'll move into the public hearings. There are quite a few. The first one is on the Downtown Catalyst project.
Okay, so I keep telling you guys that the pricing information is coming. We have received it late last week. So we do have it in our hands. We're evaluating it. And again, it is an independent pricing agency. So Dig Studios is also reviewing it just to make sure that everything is captured in there, that the right things are captured, as well as that the numbers look appropriate as far as those go. So I'm not ready yet to divulge what those numbers look like because we just want to make sure that they are correct. We don't want to give out false information and get everyone excited one way or the other regarding the project until we really know if those numbers are what we believe they are. But one exciting piece of that is that there's a Land Water Conservation Fund grant opportunity that we will be asking council tomorrow night for the opportunity to apply for that. And that would add $1 million. It's a grant opportunity for $1 million. It does have a 50-50 match. So the $1 million that we had in ABC dollars would work towards the match for that. So therefore, the budget of that project, if we were awarded the grant, would be $2 million without having to ask for any additional funding from City Council. And that concludes my update for the Downtown Catalyst project. With that, I'll take any questions.
Assuming City Council gives you the go-ahead to apply for that grant, what is the timeline?
So State Parks will review it in their, I believe, February and March meetings. And then it will be reviewed by the United States Park Service in July with funding awarded in September.
Okay. Is that the same grant that you have noted in the memo through Arizona State Parks and Trails?
Yes. So the process is it goes through their approval first and then is turned over to the United States Park Service for review, because they're actually federal dollars that are given to the states to disperse. But they all the projects have to be approved by the U.S. Park Service first.
Okay. Board members, do you have questions?
Is there a potential if for the state parks to come back and ask for, I don't know, like if retweaks is the right word, but just for adjustments to the original design? Or is it they're just looking at like, this is your plan, this is your budget, good to go? Like, do they have a say in how we design anything?
Not really. The one caveat to it is that parcel in perpetuity would have to stay as a park setting. So we couldn't, if we wanted to sell it for any reason or change it into a building of sorts, we would either have to pay back the grant or find a piece of land to redesign the exactly what we had built in there. Otherwise, the property would need to stay the way it is. Those are very similar to the recreation purpose, the patent that we just received at Sarah Park, the patent that we have at Rotary. So we're very familiar with working with those. Really, we just can't change them outside of a recreational purpose. What it is nice is what it will do is in that downtown area is if we were awarded that grant, that pretty much guarantees that that piece of land will stay the way it is forever.
I appreciate the Parks Department looking for funding and being on top of trying to get grants and everything. Again, just going back to taxpayer funding and balancing that quality of life and having fun things like that versus, again, somebody's gonna have to pay for it, and do we want taxes to raise? So I do appreciate the efforts of you guys looking for grants and wanting to apply for grants and doing that. I think that's a great thing. So.
Okay, well, then this would be an opportunity for our public member. Okay, shaking head no. All right, thank you. And I guess we will move on to a discussion on the Aquatic Center HVAC project.
Thank you. So since our last meeting, all the windows have been replaced as well as the sliding glass windows. We did reduce the number of sliding glass windows in the facility down to 2 so that there's not as much air allowing to escape throughout the building or throughout the aquatics area. So there's just 2 sliders, but those have been installed. Temporary heat units have been placed on the roof and are working very well. They're in the locker rooms as well. The new chemical room is being built this week, as well as the renovation to the acid chemical room that we have there as well. Work on the lobby ductwork, installation of exhaust fans in the locker rooms and filtration rooms, and the new roof penetrations for the new units will be done as overnight work beginning the week of February 6th. And then there is still a little wait on some of the larger units that they need to install. Those are expected to be in late spring. And then there is one unit that does not appear to be on schedule to arrive until kind of midsummer. But we'll see. They're putting a lot of pressure on the vendor to try and speed up that process.
Yeah.
With that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, questions?
Just curious, if that doesn't come in until midsummer, will that impact like operations at the aquatic center?
It shouldn't. If anything, we would. The only time that we would need to make an adjustment would be if they need, when the amount of time they need to make the lift of a large unit. They just don't like a lot of people to be around or in the facility if something were to happen. So we might have to do a small closure, but that would be the only impact.
So the funds for these projects were included in the CIP budget, which that fiscal year would end this summer. Are you on track to expend the allocated dollars, or where are we with that?
Yes, and then we would do a rollover if any, if the units hadn't arrived yet and we were still waiting on that, then we would hold a portion of that payment until the project is complete. So if we needed to roll those dollars into next year, that would be a part of the budget processes. We would request that rollover.
Okay, so you're not there's not a maximum or a limit to what you can roll over?
There is, because we still have to report to the state the overall city budget on what that number is, and so we can't go over that. But as we work through these projects, those numbers are identified, the rollovers are identified in those dollars, and it's a very common. We run into a lot of projects that just don't finish in the fiscal year that we have started in the spring, and they're multi-year projects, and we know that going in, and so those dollars are rolled in, and finance does a very good job of accounting for all of that.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions, comments? Anything from the public? All right, well, we're just cruising along. And Mr. Cox and Mr. Taylor, if you just unmute and jump in if you have a comment or a question, please.
All right. You're doing a great job, Ms. Chair.
Okay. All right. Well, next up is the update on the pickleball court project.
Yeah, so this project is moving right along. All the connecting sidewalks have been poured and the courts have been surfaced. Final grading and cleanup is starting this week, and the courts are anticipated to open in the next couple weeks. We are also working with the Pickleball Association to do a dedication ceremony, and we're hoping that we'll be able to do that in late February. So we're getting really close to wrapping up this project. They look great. I was out there the other day, and they're really coming along. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay. Questions or comments?
I haven't played pickleball myself, but after last meeting, I did go up and drive by there and take a look, and it's a nice facility, some nice views. So great job, and great job to all the pickleball players. Yes.
To add on to that, I have not been out there recently, but since our last meeting, my family and I have played pickleball quite a few times. We learned when not to go. And when you have a better opportunity to actually get to play on the courts. So, yeah, it's great to see that more are being built. And it looks like the development piece of it is really maintained, and so it's not affecting the usage of the other areas, which was nice to see. So it's quite a big project. Okay, any other questions or comments? Is this an item that, okay, nothing from the public. Okay. So then next is a summary of skate park maintenance.
Okay. So the Patrick A. Tennell Memorial Skate Park was opened in October of 2013. The park is a 40,000 square foot multi-use skate park. The park's maintenance division is responsible for maintaining this park. The crews do daily, weekly, and monthly work, as well as additional inspections of the park. Repairs of the park have taken place throughout the life of the park, both by the Parks Division and by outside contractors. We utilize outside contractors if the work is outside the knowledge or comfort level of our Parks Maintenance Division or other city departments. Sometimes we'll call in a street crew they're a little bit more prepared to do certain types of repairs than we might be. I did walk the park, I would say 2 weeks ago. It does look like it's in really good shape. The World Scooter Championships were held in October, and they actually did pay a company to come in and do some touch-up work, mainly so that the park would look better on TV or online for them. They restained some of the surfaces, the colored concrete. There's some blue and brown in there that they restained. They also painted some of the railings as well as the area where you would slide across. Just last week, we did do a repair of a section of one of the bridges where there was definitely some concrete chipping out, where a lot of the scooters either bottom out or land off of one of the ramps. So the park is very well maintained. It's concrete, so it cracks. There is a bit of cracking throughout the surface. Some of that cracking is very fine. And really you can't fill it until it opens up more. There is, a little bit of debate there of whether or not you go in and you open it up yourself and that way you can fill it, or you wait till it naturally opens and prolonging that a little bit longer. I know Board Member Taylor had asked for this item to be there. That's kind of a summary of what we do as far as the maintenance of it. And again, if we saw anything that we couldn't take care of, we would certainly reach out to different companies that have that expertise. Obviously, we do have procurement rules that we have to follow as well. We can't just pick a particular company to come, depending on the price tag of the project. But I know, like I said, Mr. Board Member Taylor had asked this, so hopefully that kind of summarizes what we do and how we do it. And with that, I'll take any questions.
And, I raised my hand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, no, I went by the park also last time I was in town, and it does look pretty good. There are some issues that are, future maintenance issues, and I'm not sure. Did you get the proposal from California Skate Parks?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, as long as you're in touch with them and everybody's on the same page, I think it's rolling right along. Looks great.
Thank you. Who else has comments or questions on this item? Anything from the public? Okay. Our last public hearing discussion is on a summary of park revenue generation.
So revenue is generated in our parks division by several ways. One, we rent out ramadas at our beach parks, as well as Jack Hardy Park. We have league field usage fees. Those are for all our different baseball leagues, softball leagues, youth soccer. So they pay a fee based on the number of individuals in their league. So it's not necessarily how much time they're using or practice or anything like that. It's just a per head for a season. And then they submit a roster to us, and then we charge them accordingly based on their season. The fields are open to tournament play. And so we rent out the fields to different tournaments that might come into town. During COVID, as everybody remembers, we had a lot of different tournaments here, as we were one of the very few places that were open. And then we rent out, you can rent out different park spaces. So if you needed a big, say the bowl for a special event or any type of special event, and then we would rank that based on the size of the square footage that you are renting is the way that the fees are set up. All those funds are then put into the general fund, as Parks and Recreation is part of the general fund. So those dollars aren't necessarily given back to the Parks Division. They are in a roundabout way as far as we're part of the general fund. Those dollars go there, and then that's how all the items are budgeted. Board Member Ross did bring this item up at our last meeting. And I did have the opportunity to meet with him a couple times and have some conversation. I don't want to steal all of his thunder, but kind of what we talked about was some different special events and the opportunity to utilize the Rotary ball fields for those. They are, some interest in maybe some concerts or music festivals down there. We do currently allow that to happen. We evaluate each event through the special event permitting process. Our major concern is any damage done to the fields. They are athletic fields first, and we want to make sure that we maintain that ability to have for our youth sports, our adult sports, our senior sports as well out there. So with that, just Madam Chair, if you wanted to.
Well, Mr. Ross, would you like to add to that?
Yes, and thank you very much. I had that opportunity to visit with Mike down at the park, and I would encourage the board members, if you get an opportunity, Mike can maybe run a tour for you down there to show you in person some of the concepts that we're talking about that would facilitate some revenue generating opportunities. I think that's well illustrated by other events in the town. Somebody mentioned earlier the Balloon Fest, even though it was windy, it was successful. That area at Windsor, does have that wind factor that I think that the area that we're talking about where the ball fields are at is much more protected. And you have the other facilities there as well that would lend itself, I think, to expanding some opportunity there. We have a good number of staging locations in town, but they're relatively small. And I applaud the parks for the tribute bands that we're having. I think that's a great start. And the other events, I think, the rockabilly and music is pretty much an opportunity that sells itself, and you can hire out the experts to coordinate and do that kind of thing, as well as the volunteerism that we have in town, as mentioned, our winter visitors and so forth that want to find something to do. Music festivals, as opposed to concerts, lots of places you can go in our geographical area where you can go attend a concert with world-class entertainment. There's been Three Dog Nights and Hall & Oates and others up in Laughlin, but their basic aim is to get you there and then get you into the casinos, whereas a festival like the Balloon Festival is a multi-day event. And if you have a large enough area that the ballparks demonstrate, you can attract a larger audience and therefore better style or class of entertainment that generates sales. And it's also the vending, I think was mentioned, the beer vending and the food vending and the merchandise vending lends itself to an opportunity for the parks to subsidize through the general fund. And there wouldn't be, I don't believe, a large expenditure on the part of the Parks Department to develop, not necessarily what one would conceive as a stage, but a staging area. You just need a nice, solid, flat footing that these special event festival folks can come and set up their staging, which is constantly evolving. So you don't have to make a large investment in equipment and lighting and so forth. This is something that they come. You've got access with semi trucks that can get in there very, very easily, and you've got some additional building and expanding that's going on down there. And I think we've really solved the problem quite nicely with the Balloon Festival as far as parking and moving people around and transporting. So I think it just would be an opportunity for the parks to supplement the other events that's already taking place and take advantage of that park in our nice weather, although it's a little cold and windy right now. But there's times when, of course, it's wonderful, as you all know. So thank you for the opportunity. Please go down and look at the area, see what you think, give us your input.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. So I'll start with this question. Do all of the other departments, so when you pay a fee for any kind of other business services or I can't think of any examples right now, but any other fees that are paid to the city, Does that revenue also go into the general budget?
Yes, the majority of fees outside of your water, wastewater fees, the majority of the fees that anyone would pay to the city do go to into the general fund. So, any police department, any fire department fees, anybody that's associated, that pulls out of the general fund, all their fees go into the general fund.
Like land surveying, anything like that?
Correct.
Fines?
All the building department. Yep.
Okay. My next question was about when you're considering the use of the parks and facilities for events. What kind of questions do you go through to determine whether, we wouldn't want the parks being used every day for an event and not have access for those of us who live here to use them. So what kind of scale do you use? How do you determine when to say yes or no?
You have to look at the whole picture. The time of season, if we're in the middle of softball season, what is already scheduled in the facility? What type of event is it? When we start talking about utilizing the athletic fields, we also look and work with the promoter if there's maybe a better location for an event, just based on the wear and tear. If you're creating any sort of vehicular traffic on them, then sometimes rutting will occur. So we do look at those types of things as well. And again, if there's a better facility that might house their event and make it more successful for everybody. And then just, they build out a diagram. We sit down and meet with them. It's not just us. We sit with the police department, the fire department, the streets crew. So every city department has a representative in these special event meetings, just of what does it take to actually put them on. Is there a true criteria that we go down? Not necessarily. Each event is a little bit different, but those are the types of things that we look at: scheduling, time of year, impact to the facility itself, and then is there different opportunities? If those things aren't ideal, is there different opportunities to house this event in a different location?
Okay. Mr. Taylor, did you have a question?
The ball fields do work out great for other types of events. I've used them several times, and the Rotary Park ball fields, we even designed the entrances and access into the field specifically for events, like during the Lucas Oil drag boat race events. So they are a great option when available.
Anyone else have any comments or questions on that?
I'm sorry, and where exactly are the bars? I missed that. Where are we talking about here?
The ballparks that are just due west of the aquatic center there, that large area. I think the last event that was there was the
Bearcat Bowl?
It was the Halloween event, I believe.
Yeah, Fall Fun Fair. The
Bearcat
the
Bowl?
Bearcat
Okay,
Pole was in
gotcha.
that parking lot. Yes.
Which was a great event, by the way.
I guess I just have one more question. When we were talking about building Cypress and other fields, there was a lot of conversation about the revenue that events and tournaments can generate. Would you ever, let me ask it differently. Even though each department pools the funds that are received, do you still keep track of what revenue is generated by each department? And so if you were asked, maybe could show some of the cost benefits?
Yes, certainly. Each department does keep the revenue. I will say, as a whole, the Parks and Recreation Department produces just a little over $1 million in revenue
Annually?
With that, we spend anywhere between $6 and $7 million. That's the reason that we're in the general fund. Therefore, we can be subsidized by tax revenue, all those things. If we're an enterprise fund, much like the water or wastewater funds, they're only that they're only allowed to spend what they bring in. So.
I do think this is a worthy conversation because I think that there are different opinions of how things are used. So some people do think that you pay a fee to get into the aquatic center, for example, and that those fees are used to generate the account for that aquatic center, and that's not the case. And so when I hear, people often comment about charging out of town visitors to enter Rotary Park or other parks where you can do that, it's not as if that would generate funds just to maintain that park. So anyway, I'm glad this was a discussion because I think it could be helpful to keep having these kinds of conversations.
I just wanted to echo on what you said. I went home for the holidays, and I like in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. Charge all the out of towners, right? But I think for me, when I think about, why would I pay to go to a park? It's less about the upkeep of the park and more about kind of like the responsibility and the ownership that I don't see in all the people that come to visit. And so I would wonder if there was a way, whether, I look at the summer, right? And all these people are out on the lake, they're having a great time, the channel's packed, and then everyone kind of clears off, and is it necessarily pristine beaches that they leave behind, And so if there was almost a way to, I don't want to say like monetize that, but almost encourage people to take more ownership of the spaces that they're using. I don't know if that's necessarily the case when people come visit is, how do I kind of, especially with spring break coming up, how do I look at this beautiful lake that I'm coming to visit and realize like, oh, it doesn't just, there's people that are taking care of it every day, and how do I kind of leave the area better than I found it?
Thank you for that. Oh, thank you. Mr. Cox?
Sure. Thank you, Mrs. Chair. I just have a couple questions. First off, I guess, for the director, how many requests do we have to utilize these athletic fields? Is that a common request?
We get a few. I won't say it's a large number. There are, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, outside of the events that as a department that we put on, I would say there's probably 3 or 4 different events that take place on the Rotary fields. Again, outside of the events that the department puts on.
Okay, I think that answered that question for me. I guess I want to, make some comments. I do have worries of, trying to push or advertise or trying to create or turn our athletic fields into a multi-use event space or concert space or music festival space. Some of the worries that I have is, I think we have to walk a fine line as a government and as a city and make sure that we still provide the best facilities for our public, especially our youth, and make sure that those facilities stay beautiful. We have, in my opinion, some of the best athletic fields in the area, and I don't know that I want to go down that. Me personally would like to go down the road of trying to convert our athletic spaces into a multi-use facility, because again, with that multi-use facility is going to come wear and tear to our already beautiful facility. When it comes to, current spaces that are available to do these concerts or music festivals, I think we have a good amount of areas that are maybe a little better fit for these things. One of those spaces being the Arizona State Park, or the Arizona State Park's Lake Havasu State Park facility. They have a beautiful area that has that grass that is better designed and fit for a multi-use facility. Some of the other concerns I would have would be parking. Again, at that Windsor 4 space at Lake Havasu State Park, there's open parking lots. There's parking lots across the street. That seems like it's going to be more of what that would be designed for. To even echo that even more, this Catalyst project that we've spoken about, I think that would be, again, another great place to have this. Leno Bridge Beach already has a stage. There's a lot of places I think that are already, well equipped to handle these kind of events. Again, I think, we've talked about this, and I know I've been adamant on this, is I think that as a community, as a government, and, as an advisory board, my position's always been, let's take care of what we have. I'm not saying that we need to not add things, but we also need to be cautious of potentially using taxpayer money to continue to add and add and add when we're not always well equipped to take care of what we have. To reinvent what we already have using money, not saying that there wouldn't be grants or something we could get, I think would be a hard road to go down. When we talk about fees, this got brought up with the aquatic center fees. I think it's one of those things to where we need to be understanding that, the fees that we're collecting now, are essentially just supplementing what we're using as far as tax money to achieve these goals, right? Like the aquatic center fees, like I said, it's, taxpayer money is still subsidizing that. Do we increase that to make it less desirable? Do we decrease those fees to make it a little more desirable, but then have to fund it a little more with taxpayer money? I think where we're at right now is working. I don't know that we need to make these big changes to try to make more money. Again, I think as a government, especially in the park side of things, it's expected that taxpayer money is going to be going towards these things, because that's what our citizens and me as a citizen vote to do. Is we want our parks to be beautiful. We want our parks to be, accessible to us when we want to use them as the public. And the last comment that I have is I just would be careful with, the idea of charging, some of the comments got made of, charging out of town visitors or, non-residents to our parks. We've all been to that big state to the west of us that charges for everything. They charge for every parking spot. There's parking meters everywhere. There's, you have to get to a beach, you have to pay $50. I mean, everything is charged. I think that makes it less desirable. I do agree with some of the comments of, how do we build that ownership and maybe try to supplement some of the taxpayer money that we're using to clean up, with a lack of better words, clean up after some of these people. But, I think the good majority do care, and the good majority do take ownership in our beautiful area. So I would just caution that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
I hear what everybody's saying, and it's nice to have the option for certain events. We have used the ball fields. I've probably had more clients that wanted to use the area, and it just didn't work out for many reasons. And it always seems that the larger events end up at Windsor for that type, like Kyler was saying. So, but and then the other problem I've run into is with, and it's sad to say that it's a problem because it's their park, but the citizens sometimes, if they're not interested in the event that is being held on their public park, it seems to upset some people. So it's a fine line for sure.
All right.
Can I just ask a quick clarifying question? Are we talking about using the ball fields for like city produced events? Like for example, like music festivals, or are we talking just entertaining like a proposal from like an outside vendor to use the ballpark for something else?
Yeah, my understanding is that we're not a production company, so we wouldn't be putting on the concerts. It would be a promoter coming to us. Again, that is allowed currently. It's just something that we look very carefully at and make sure that it makes sense at that location, that we're not destroying or changing the facility in any way. The baseball fields and softball fields are very temperamental, especially with they're a little different than maybe a soccer field or a football field in the fact that red when it gets trampled down, walked on if it's wet, anybody rides a bicycle through, those types of things. There's a lot more maintenance on the red than there is sometimes just on the general turf. There are other places around the country where turf's a lot easier to grow. We are running into some water conservation concerns here, and that's just going to make the turf that much harder to grow if we have to limit the amount of water. We've all talked about reuse water in those regards. That's good for a short term. We look at the Island Ball Field that has been on reuse water for over 20 years, and you just walk around and you can see the salt. So those are things that we have to take into account as well when we're looking at that.
Any other comments or questions? Okay.
I think it's a good conversation to have, just to echo what some other people have said, with this being the advisory board. And I think the bigger question too, and address the city council and everything is, overall, where do we want Havasu to go? What do we want Havasu to be? We have wintertime visitors, we have summertime visitors, and then we have the people, those of us that live here and that pay taxes and that invest and everything. And I think everybody plays a part, but I think this is a good conversation to have, again, in the general theme of, okay, what is Havasu? What do we want Havasu to be, and everything? And so I think hopefully we can continue this conversation, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I agree. And we don't have anyone from the public who wants to participate in this discussion. All right. Well, thank you for that. Next up is to discuss future discussion items. Are there any future agenda items you would like to see?
Just looking forward to those budget numbers.
I think that's already, we're going to discuss that. Okay. Okay. No others? Okay. This will be coming up soon because teen break is in March and you gave us an update on where it's at. If that's not already going to be in your staff report, could it be a discussion item? Or were you already planning on including that?
Yeah, it'll be included in our in the director's report, some of the planning that's taking place, and then we could have it as a discussion item as we get closer. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, our future meetings.
Okay. February 27th and March 27th.
Okay. Then is there a motion to adjourn? Do we need a motion to adjourn?
Just adjourn.
Okay, well then we are adjourned at, that clock is wrong. Let's see, 6:50. Oh, that's right. Okay. Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Kyler.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.